Dad! Mom! Look at my design! Look, look! I dragged my parents to the living room.
Oh no! Oh my!
My mom screamed and fainted, but my dad caught her before she could hit her head on the floor. Dad, what's wrong with Mom?
Nothing much, honey. Her brain is just too tiny. It doesn't have the capacity to behold neither talent nor beauty. She's too small-minded, my darling. But you, oh you are talent itself, and I'm proud of you. Give Daddy a big hug.
He stretched forth his hands and I ran into them.
By the way, next time you want to create such an amazing drawing, do it in the art studio, okay? Never on the walls, so your mom doesn't faint again. Do you understand me, honey?
Understood.
Amazing. Let me take your mom to her room.
I'll go with you. As we walked up the stairs with my unconscious mom, I took one last glance at the massive, childlike drawing that now covered the entire living room wall, which used to be a clear white. I was an artist. That was so many years ago, but I remember it like it was just yesterday. Art has always been a passion of mine, and once my dad noticed that I had a thing for drawing and painting, he immediately had an art studio set up for me. While my dad loved everything I created, whether it was a dot or a brushstroke, my mom misunderstood and detested my creations. Not like I could look up to her anyway. My mom was what you'd call a trophy wife. She was beautiful, and that was it. My dad was an international businessman who dealt in different things. Art was one of them, and so he had an eye for it, enough to know that I was special. Like this video and subscribe to our channel immediately if you want to have any supportive person in your life. My dad took care of me as much as he could whenever he was around, but the thing is, he wasn't always around. He was always out on one business trip or the other, and although he called and texted frequently, I always felt his absence. My mom, on the other hand, was always around but never available, always out gisting with her girls or attending parties. I never felt like I had a mother growing up, not a biological one at least. I had a mother replacement, and she was Tima, my nanny.
What about Princeton?
Tima asked one hot afternoon in the art studio, cleaning up after me as I painted.
I haven't heard you talk about him a lot recently.
Princeton.
Yes?
Princeton is old news, okay? Don't ask me about him ever again. After setting up an art studio for me, my dad signed me up for art camp. He wanted me to improve my drawing and painting skills, so he started sending me to the camp every summer. Being an only child, it was difficult for me to make friends, so I was always lonely, until I met Princeton, the only son of the Michaelo family. The Reeds and the Michaelos had a good history, so when I told my dad that a guy called Princeton Michaelo had tried to talk to me during art camp, he encouraged me to befriend him.
Jennifer Reeds!
Princeton bellowed during our second summer camp.
Are you going to talk to me now? Or are you going to run away while clucking like a chicken, just like you did last time?
I laughed and walked out of my tent. Princeton and I became best friends and caused a lot of mischief during our various summer camps, until our last year of summer camp, when he disappeared. I did everything to reach out to him, but it proved impossible. Princeton was gone from my life just like that, in the blink of an eye. This broke me because I was a homeschooled kid. I had 0 friends. Zilch. Nada. Princeton was the only one who'd managed to break through the walls of my heart.
I'm sorry, Jennifer. I didn't mean to make you feel bad. I just wanted to know if you'd been able to get through to him or if he'd reached out.
I'm sorry, Tima. I didn't mean to raise my voice. I'm just still hurting. And no, I've stopped trying to reach out, and he's never even bothered to reach out to me, so he's old news.
Any new news?
We both laughed. No, not yet, thankfully. I loved Tima so much. She was the only real mother I'd ever known. It was a few weeks to my 18th birthday, and my dad was about to travel again. Dad, you're traveling again? You promised to take me to your friend's gallery so he could see some of my pieces and feature them. And now you want to leave? No way.
Honey, come on. This is not the first time I'm traveling. I'll be back before your birthday, and I'll fulfill my promise. So for now, just keep creating, okay? Create masterpieces so you'll blow my friend's brain right off.
He laughed. I don't know why, but something just feels off. Can you postpone your trip? Travel after my birthday. Please?
Oh, honey, but this is an important trip. It'll determine our future. I'm sorry, but I have to go. I won't miss your birthday, I promise.
For the first time in 13 years, I wept as I watched my father leave. I didn't want him to travel. For some reason, I just felt this inexplicable sorrow as he closed the front door behind him. It was almost like I knew that he was never going to walk through those doors with his 2 legs ever again. Mrs. Reeds rolled her eyes and walked away. She thought I was pathetic, and I wondered how we could have ever been related. For the next few weeks, I threw myself into creating masterpieces, so my dad would show his friend when he returned. But whenever I picked up the paintbrush, my stomach started to turn. My heart started beating fast and I became scared. My body knew that something terrible was about to happen, but my brain refused to accept it. I ignored my worry and created the best drawings possible. My birthday came and I didn't bother with planning a party despite Mrs. Reeds trying to convince me to do that. All she cared about was luxury and partying. She'd take any excuse to invite her friends for a party, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I didn't have friends to invite for a party, so what was the need? All I wanted was my dad. My beautiful, lovable, perfect dad. I dressed up and waited excitedly for my dad to return. All my canvases were arranged and packaged right beside me. It was morning when I started waiting, and I'd waited till evening, but heard nothing from my dad. He wasn't picking his calls anymore. What could have happened? I just spoke with him this morning, so he had to be fine, right? The doorbell finally rang and I happily ran towards the door, but the person waiting behind the door was neither my father nor his driver.
I'm sorry about this terrible news.
I knew what he was about to say before he said it. I'd suspected it all along, but it hurt even more when I discovered that it had happened just a few meters from our family house.
I don't know why they were driving so fast. I guess he was rushing home for some reason. I'm sorry, but they're both gone.
I caused it. My dad knew he was late, so he was rushing home to me. I caused it. I caused the accident. I packed all my drawings outside and immediately set them ablaze. If my art became the end of my father and his driver, then perhaps it'll become my end too. I couldn't let that happen. I had to end it first. My dad's burial was another opportunity for Mrs. Reeds to plan another frivolous party. I don't even think she cared much that her husband was dead. All she wanted was a perfect party. She didn't even bother consoling me as I mourned my father. She totally ignored my existence. Thankfully, Tima was around. Tima was always there for me. The burial came to an end and it was time for the reading of the will. My sweet father left substantial amounts for our domestic staff, and the rest was left to me. Unfortunately, I couldn't access it until I turned 21. Until then, my biological mother had control over everything, and was directed to take care of me until I turned 21, and after that. I thought it was weird that my father had to spell out biological mother, but I simply ignored it. While leaving for college, Tima gifted me a journal.
I know you love drawing. I know that's how you express yourself. Don't stop. Whenever you have no other place to let it out, use this journal.
My college funds had already been paid for by my father, so I started school immediately while Mrs. Reeds jumped into spending her newly acquired money. My so-called mother never sent me any money to survive, despite the fact that I called her multiple times. And so, I had to start taking odd jobs around the school to be able to pay my bills. At school, the Reed surname attracted people to me, but they left immediately they found out that I didn't have access to the family money. Meanwhile, my mother was on the news daily for one crazy rich act or another. She knew my dad's company was sinking, but she didn't do anything about it, and she didn't care much either. Tima came to spend some time with me at school, and while cleaning up, she found the journal that she'd previously gotten for me. She saw my sketches and said that they were beautiful.
Start drawing again.
It wasn't easy, but I listened to the only woman who'd ever been a real mother to me. I started drawing again. Students around campus started paying me to do designs on their room walls, and I quickly started earning a lot from my hobby. At the beginning of my final year, things started to get real. The little money that I'd been using to survive through my art and odd jobs couldn't sustain me anymore. I needed money from my mother, but she avoided me everywhere. I had turned 21, but my mom found a loophole in the will and worked with a lawyer to restrict access to my dad's money until I was 25 due to immature behavior. I knew that there'd be no money or company remaining by that time, and I had to do something immediately. I just didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Tima sent me the address of a gallery that was set to open soon. It was close to my school, and she encouraged me to take some of my work there. I kept going, but the owner was never around to vet my pieces. One day, I went back to check and ran into Princeton. It turned out that he was the owner of the gallery, so I got the best spots for their opening night, and a lot of my pieces were purchased for 100 times their usual prices. After reconnecting with Princeton, He apologized for ghosting me, and we started hanging out a lot while Tima kept teasing me. Princeton said he had something special to show me on the second opening night of the gallery, and Tima anticipated a proposal. I dressed up that night and headed to the gallery. Princeton took my hand and walked me to his office where we met a lady.
Yennefer, this is my wife, Miranda. Miranda, meet Yennefer, my girlfriend.
What the heck is this? I ran while Princeton chased after me. Apparently, he ran a polygamous marriage and wanted me to be his second wife. I started crying uncontrollably and ran back to Tima, who consoled me as usual. After that painful heartbreak, I decided to focus on helping my dad's company thrive and saving his wealth. I asked Tima, who had coincidentally become my permanent roommate, for advice.
Well, your dad did say biological mother in his will.
Yeah, that was strange.
God, how do I tell you this? Mrs. Reeds is not your biological mother.
What?
It's complicated. Your mother, Mrs. Reeds, couldn't have a child, so she hired a poor woman to have a child for her. She never met this woman, but your father did before paying her off and forcing her to sign a contract of non-disclosure.
Who is this woman, and how do you know this?
You see, the thing is, this woman couldn't bear being that far away from her daughter, so she convinced your father to hire her as a nanny.
You're my biological mother?
Yes.
Is Mr. Reeds my biological father?
Yes.
It took me a short while to get over the hurt and forgive Tima because I loved her so much. Armed with this new revelation, I rescued my dad's company and money and changed my and Tima's life for the best.
Tell me all you know.
No! Never!
I zapped her with the taser again.
Ah!
I said, tell me all you know.
Fine.
My mom started crying.
Fine, I'll tell you.
So, you're probably wondering why I'm interrogating my mom. Well, it'd make more sense if I started from the beginning. So if you want to find out why, make sure you stay tuned till the end of the video. Before I was born, my parents were rich. Not mega rich, but they had a mansion. So I guess they were pretty rich. Anyway, you could say that they had a pretty perfect life. Until I came along. I'm what you'd call a devil, per se. I like trouble. I seek trouble. I love trouble. One time, when I was about 3 years old, I set fire to my parents' Porsche because I was bored. Good times. Anyway, my parents' perfect life completely changed once I came into the picture. They had to deal with vandalism, bills, angry principals, angry neighbors, all that jazz. So you can imagine their disappointment when they found out Mom was pregnant. I was about 7 years old at the time. They brought home a baby boy, and as soon as I laid eyes on him, I knew I was going to protect him. I adored the baby boy, who they ended up calling Jesse. As it turned out, Jesse wasn't the devil child my parents expected him to be, like me. Jesse was so sweet, so kind, and as he grew and grew, we discovered he was so smart. Easily the top of his class. And if he wanted to skip 3 grades above, he could have. But my parents wouldn't let him because they said that would be too weird, whatever that means. Anyway, in all other realms, I was the devil. But when it came to little Jesse, I treated him like an angel. I loved him so much, much more than my annoying parents, and I wanted him to have the best life. I dreamed of getting a good job and paying off Jesse's college tuition. Because of course he would go to college and become the greatest scientist ever. I actually started getting good grades once I set my goals on that. Maybe I did have a little smartness in my genes. Jesse and I would play a lot when he came home from school. We played video games. Our favorite was Super Smash Brothers. And we did karaoke a lot too. One time we had the song Never Gonna Give You Up stuck in our heads for so long that we would only speak in the song's lyrics. Never gonna, I started while pouring cereal.
Give you up!
Jesse smirked as he bit into his toast.
Never gonna
Let you down.
Would you two shut up?
Mom looked like she had enough of our rickrolls. Anyway, Jesse actually helped make me a better child. We had a good life. Things were going well. Until everything went wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Jesse went to a different school to me, one for smart kids, and he usually got home at around 5 in the afternoon. I was waiting for him on the front doorstep, but 5 o'clock came and no Jesse. I was starting to get worried. I told my parents, they didn't even seem bothered.
He'll show up sometime.
But then 6 o'clock came along and Jesse still hadn't come home. Something must have happened to him.
Relax. He's a big boy. He can look after himself.
He's 10.
He is?
Ugh! I called the school. They said Jesse had already left at 4 p.m. The bus was only a 30-minute ride away. He should have been home by now. I decided to call the police and file a missing persons report. And this is the part of my story where the craziness really begins. Days passed until it had become a week since anyone had last seen Jesse. I was frantic, losing my mind, putting up flyers, asking anyone if they'd seen my little brother. My parents, on the other hand, they acted like nothing had happened. I hadn't even seen them cry, not even once. Weren't the parents supposed to be the ones fretting over this, not me? But no, they didn't have a care in the world. I decided to hire a private investigator. I didn't tell my parents. Of course, they wouldn't let me. They thought it would be a waste of money. So I stole money from them to pay for the investigator. What? I told you I was the devil. And especially when it came to Jesse, I would do whatever it'd take to get him back. Anyway, a few days passed before the private investigator called me back with news.
I have footage of your brother being kidnapped.
What?
He was taken around your home at about 5 o'clock.
Oh my God, can you send the footage over?
Sure, it's pretty hard to make out who it is though. Don't get your hopes up.
Okay, just sent it. My computer pinged with an email from him and an attached file. I opened it up, and sure enough, the security camera footage showed Jesse walking down the street right in front of our house. Then some car pulling up and snatching him. Oh my God! I replayed the video, and that's when I saw it. The person who had taken him was wearing high heels. Blue high heels, to be exact. And I would recognize those heels anywhere. A few minutes later, I walked into the living room. Mom and Dad were watching TV. I looked down at my mom's feet. Lo and behold, blue high heels. Could my mom really have kidnapped Jesse? Was my dad in on it too? Was this why they were acting so calm? I decided to confront them then and there. Did you kidnap Jesse? My parents froze. They looked at each other.
Mandy, how could you say something like that?
I have footage of you taking him, Mom. I know you did it. Mom looked like she was starting to panic. She looked at Dad, and I could tell they were thinking one thing. We have to get rid of her. Well, I wasn't going to let them do it. So I did the first thing that came to mind. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a pan, and bonked them both on the back of the heads before they could even think to attack me. A few hours later, they woke up, tied to chairs in our basement. Tell me all you know.
No, never.
I zapped Mom with the taser. Finally, she relented.
Fine. Listen, Mandy, it's not what you think.
You kidnapped Jesse. Mom looked at Dad.
Well, yes and no.
Huh? Stop speaking in riddles.
Honey, she isn't speaking in riddles. It's true that we took Jesse.
Okay, so...
But we didn't kidnap him. We returned him.
Returned him? Returned him to who? My parents looked at each other again. I raised the taser as a threat. To who?
To his creators.
I paused. What?
To his creators. Your brother, he's a robot.
The taser fell from my hands and dropped to the floor. What did you just say?
He's a robot. Your mother never gave birth to him. He's a robot designed in a lab, and he was given to us as part of his real-world testing. We were supposed to raise him for 10 years, then return him to his creators. It's all part of the deal.
I couldn't even speak. I was too speechless.
We were paid a lot to keep him and raise him. That's how we managed to pay off all your damages and the troubles you've caused.
Jesse is a robot?
Yes.
How could you return him? He's your son.
He's not our son. He's a robot, Mandy.
Don't you love him? My mom hesitated.
We can't love a machine, Mandy. We knew this from the beginning.
I don't care if he's a machine. I'm gonna bring him back.
You can't. He's gone now, Mandy. He might already be destroyed. It's too late.
But I didn't care. I was gonna get my brother back, even if he was a robot. I spent the next 10 minutes getting the location of Jesse's creators from my parents. Then I locked them up in the basement. I didn't call the police. I wasn't sure what would happen if I did. I prepped all my gear: rope, knives, a laser cutter, my dad's Jeep. If you're wondering where I got the laser cutter from, don't ask. Let's just say I was an adventurous child. I pulled up the Jeep, thankful that I had taken those driving lessons. Then I sped off. Jesse was being held at a base far off in the countryside. 5 hours later, I arrived. I pulled on my black clothing, looking like a ninja. I hid the Jeep behind some bushes and proceeded on foot. I'll rescue you, Jesse. Getting in was much easier than expected. I guess they never anticipated anyone discovering their location. All I had to do was climb up the 50-foot wall using my rope and an anchor. Well, I guess it wasn't that easy, but for me, this was child's play. I climbed over the wall and walked down some stairs. Inside, it was quiet. A few people were milling around, but not that many. There were signs pointing everywhere. I started to walk and read the signs, seeing if any pointed to Jesse. I stopped at one door that said JE551E. That had to be Jesse. I entered, and sure enough, there was my little brother. Except he was a robot, and his limbs were all removed, detached like a broken toy. I stifled a cry. Jesse? He didn't respond. I approached him slowly. I tapped his face. He opened his eyes and looked at me. I smiled. Don't worry, Jesse, I'll get you out of here. I expected Jesse to smile back, to look relieved, something, but what he said next shattered my heart into a million pieces.
Who are you?
Oh no.
I'm afraid he doesn't remember you.
I spun around. A man in a scientist's outfit stood at the door. Let my brother go.
He's not your brother. He's a robot, a social experiment, and he will be deactivated very soon.
No! I charged at the man, but guards entered and grabbed me before I could do anything. They dragged me away from Jesse. No! Jesse! They put me in a chair and placed handcuffs on me. I looked at Jesse. He was watching all this with emotionless eyes. Had Jesse really forgotten me?
And now, the deactivation procedure.
The girl is still here.
She can watch.
Are you sure? Isn't that a little traumatic?
It's a good experience for her.
I struggled against my handcuffs, but they wouldn't budge. The scientists surrounded Jesse, and I saw one of them raise a big red button. The scientist reached a finger, about to press down and murder Jesse. I panicked. I had to do something. I had to save Jesse. And I did the first thing that came into my head. Never gonna give you up. The scientist stared at me.
What?
Never gonna let you down.
What is she doing?
Is she singing?
Never gonna run around and
Desert you!
I looked at Jesse. He was staring at me now with recognition in his eyes. He remembered me. Jesse, they're about to deactivate you. Quick, do something. Jesse turned around, eyes widening at all the scientists surrounding him. And then he reassembled himself into his normal body. He broke free of his restraints and rushed towards me.
Hold on!
I grabbed hold of him and suddenly we were flying. He had rocket boots on his feet. Crazy, I know. Jesse broke a hole into the roof and we flew away, far away from all the scientists and machinery and everything. We kept flying until we arrived back home at the mansion. Oh, Jesse, I'm so glad you're okay. I hugged him. But we can't stay here. Mom and Dad know everything. We have to run away or they'll take you again. Jesse nodded.
You're right.
And that's what we're doing right now. We're on the run from our parents, from Jesse's creators, from everyone. I have to keep Jesse safe. Wish me luck. Such a stressful day. I opened the door to my luxurious apartment and went straight for my bed when I noticed something unusual. Someone had been in my house. Oh my God! My stuff was littered across the floor, and when I looked closely, I noticed that most of them were missing. Goodness! My flat screen TV, laptop, DVD, home theater, iPad, iPhone, AirPods, oh my God! All my gadgets were gone. I ran straight into my studio. I'm sure that the riffraff, whoever it was, had no idea that there were cameras all over my house. I selected the CCTV recording and fast-forwarded it until I saw the robber break in. Wait a minute, was that my boyfriend? Hi, I'm Summer. If you want to know why my boyfriend robbed me and the crazy circumstances that led to the break-in, watch this video till the end. Believe me, you don't want to miss a second. I came from a generational farming clan. Everyone before me was a farmer, and everyone after me was going to be a farmer. This was our destiny, and everyone accepted it without question. Farming was a natural gift that we were all born with. Whatever we touched blossomed, and we made good money from it, too. So imagine my parents' surprise when I told them that I wasn't interested in farming.
What are you interested in then?
Music, fashion, acting, sports, anything related to these. I want to be a public figure like Angelina Jolie, Zendaya, or Rihanna.
You will always be a farmer, Summer. Always.
In your dreams, Mom. In your dreams. I whispered and snuck away. I tried different things when I was younger. Those days, I was miserable and searched fervently for my passion. I heard the village choir singing one day on my weekly local market run and ended up mesmerized. "Hi, mister, can I join you guys?" I asked the choir master, tugging at his sleeves.
Only if you've got what it takes.
He replied with a wink. I sang for them, and everyone agreed that indeed I did have what it took. After that, I joined them for practice during my weekly local market runs, and my family could never understand why a simple market run would take so many hours. Until the quarterly village festival, of course, when I joined the village choir to perform on stage without my parents' permission.
What did you think you were doing up there?
My dad screamed once we got home from the festival. "I wanted to surprise you guys."
Really?
My mom shrieked, landing a resounding slap on my cheek, a slap that sent me sprawling on the floor. My ears began ringing once her hand touched my face.
What is our family name?
My dad asked calmly, staring at me square in the face without blinking. "We're the Hayes," I replied amidst sobs and ringing ears.
Exactly. And for as long as I can remember, and as long as my grandfather and great-grandfather could remember, we've always been farmers, and good ones at that. This is all we've ever done, and it's all we'll ever do.
But, I tried to protest while struggling to my feet.
Enough. You're not a singer, Summer. You are a farmer. And for as long as you continue to live under this roof, that is all you will do. Let such nonsense never repeat itself ever again.
He walked off, puffing and puffing. A few days after that, I was on my way back from the local market once again when I stumbled upon a group of boys playing football. I was friends with almost all of them, and I waved to them as I walked past.
Hey, Summer, why don't you join us?
One of them suggested, placing the ball under his arm and walking up to me. "Nah, I'm sorry, Jimmy, but I really have to get back home. I don't want to be late,"
Come on, it'll just be a few minutes, and it'll be fun.
he said as he rolled the ball towards me. I kicked it towards the 2 poles they had set up as the goalpost and made a crazy decision. "A few minutes wouldn't hurt, I guess," I said, smiling. Every week after that, I joined the boys for a football game on my way back from the market, and pretty soon, I started enjoying it. It didn't take me long to become a good player because I was a quick learner, so I became a popular footballer. I was enjoying my budding football career until one evening, a few hours after playing football with the boys, I heard a knock on our house door. My mom was close to the door, so she immediately reached out and opened it. Standing in front of it was Jeremy, alongside his mother, who looked very unpleasant.
Is Summer around?
She asked once the door was opened. I heard my name being called and walked up to see what was happening.
Is she the one?
Jeremy's mom turned to Jeremy when I arrived at the front door.
Yes, Mom. It's her.
Is there a problem?
My mom, confused by the commotion and still standing by the door, asked,
Mrs. Hayes, Jeremy here tells me that your daughter broke his big toe.
My mom laughed, disbelief written all over her face.
Really? And how did that happen? Well, Jeremy plays football with your daughter, and today in a game of football, she stepped on his big toe and broke it. It took him a while to confess that Summer was the one that did this to him. He was quite ashamed and scared that she'd hurt him again.
What? I'd never hurt Jeremy on purpose.
So this is true? You play football with this young man?
I tried to deny it, but couldn't. I knew this would get me in trouble, and boy, was I right. I had never been scolded that way. I was scolded that night in my entire life. To make matters worse, my mom scolded me right in front of Jeremy and his mother, and continued to scold me long after they had gone, with a few slaps on my cheek added for good measure. No one had to tell me to avoid the boys and their football game the next time I saw them. I had officially become a retired footballer. The straw that finally broke the camel's back was when I was forced to sleep in the barn after one of my numerous transgressions. After that, I decided to get a hobby that revolved around farm life, and I finally settled on making butter from cow's milk. It was initially for my personal use, but one day I was encouraged to sell it by my dad, who was happy that I had finally decided to focus on the farm. Before long, the farm had hordes of people lining up to buy my butter. I was subsequently convinced to enter the village's annual butter churning competition, which was coming up, and I did. The day of the competition arrived, and I was greeted by Winter, my evil nemesis, who came up to me like an evil villain.
Hey, Summer. I heard that you're in this year's competition.
Yeah, I figured I'd try to put my butter out there. I know it's good.
You think so? What if you don't win?
I don't really care if I win. I just want to have fun.
With that attitude, you should just quit this competition, because I'm going to beat you hands down. I can't wait to see your facial expression when I climb that stage to collect what is rightfully mine, the gold award.
Whatever, Winter. Well, I won the competition, but as I was walking up to get my picture taken with the judges and my award, I felt something powerfully rip my dress.
Serves you right. Let's see how you'll collect my award now. That award is rightfully mine.
Winter whispered. I walked up the stage majestically despite my ripped dress and Winter's maniacal whispers.
You might have won this lousy competition, but your dress is permanently ruined.
She yelled after me when I was walking back home. The next day, I awakened to some noise. I found out that some people had gathered in front of our house and wanted to speak to me, but they had spoken to my father instead. They had seen the pictures of me in my dress receiving my award and thought I looked beautiful in my dress. They also admired my skin, which they said was beautiful and golden. They wanted to take me to the city, but my father denied their request. Why didn't you say yes? I asked my father after they left.
Why should I? If you're gone, who would do your share of the farm work?
He replied without even turning to look at me.
We already have our hands full here, so we can't afford to lose you to the city.
But what if I don't want to be here? I can't stay here forever, I screamed.
Don't be silly. Why do you want to go there? Who do you know in the city? Who would take care of you? You're just an ordinary farm girl, and they want to exploit you and use you to make money for themselves. You're staying here, and that's final.
No, I hate it here. I want to go. Please, let me go. My mother ran up to me and gave me her heavy signature slap. Immediately, those words left my lips. She said I was ungrateful and wanted to just abandon them and run to the city.
You're never leaving here, you evil child.
I was thrown into the barn once again and was visited by Winter, who was happy to find out that I'd been punished again. Winter just happened to be passing by, so she stopped by the entrance of the barn to gloat and taunt me before leaving.
Enjoy your night here. I hope you have a blanket, because it's going to get really cold very soon.
She snickered as she walked away, forgetting to lock the barn doors back from the outside. I silently watched her stupidity. I decided that enough was enough. I took my chance and escaped through the open barn doors, taking my prize money along with my award to the city where one of the butter competition judges lived, and pretty quickly, she helped me secure a modeling contract which I combined with singing. My talent made me popular and I started living the life that I've always wanted. My mom tried spreading terrible rumors about me, but people didn't believe them, so my career stayed safe. I soon fell in love with a guy, Autumn, and we decided to get married. I was 20 and he was 23. I stopped by his house one day to surprise him with some jewelry. I entered unannounced, and right in front of me was Autumn, my boyfriend, hugging Winter.
Babe, it's not what you think.
He said as soon as he saw me. Really? What is it then? I threw the jewelry at him and walked out of his place angrily. I called off the wedding immediately, but one day, he cornered me and begged me to let him explain. He told me that Winter was his sister, and that he had no idea that we knew each other, or that we were even rivals. I listened to his explanation, but told him that there was no hope for us anymore. He called me numerous times after that and begged that we get back together, but I rejected his request every single time. When he finally saw that I was never going to change my decision, he decided to leave me alone. We went our separate ways, and this was when I discovered that my place had been broken into. Just a few weeks after our discussion, the individual had destroyed the lock of my door and made away with almost anything he could find, including my TV and other electronics like my laptop, which had been lying around when I left home. I played back my CCTV recordings and discovered that the burglar was none other than Autumn, my very own ex-boyfriend, someone I had almost gotten married to. He had broken into my place when he knew I wouldn't be around and had stolen almost anything he could get his hands on. It became clear to me at this point that Autumn never really loved me. He was just getting married to me because of my wealth, and once that was called off, he broke in and stole what he could. I was hurt, but decided not to press charges, as he never bothered me again. I have since moved on with my life and found a better guy, but marriage isn't in the cards for us anytime soon. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel.